up, Mr. fucking Desert Dime?
What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. As you can see here behind me, I am with one of the coolest second-gen Tacomas in the world, in my opinion, and the man who built it and drives it. Nick over there, he's taking a leak. Well, we're gonna get to meet him right now. We're gonna do a full walk around on the truck, and alongside this video, I'm filming sort of a day in the life vlog where we get to meet him, see his shop, and just kind of behind the scenes of us filming this truck. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we're with the man himself here, Nick. You wanna go ahead and introduce yourself, talk about the truck a little?
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Nick on Instagram. My Instagram is Martech Engineering. Trying to become your local second-gen Tacoma specialist. First Tacoma I built about 2.5 years ago. Kind of just linked it front and rear and realized that there was a gap in the market for a kit, you know, and spent the next 1.5 years or so kind of figuring everything out, getting ideas on how I wanted things to be and things like that. And then about a year ago built my second Tacoma, and then this is number 3 where we are indeed the kit on. Up front we got our frame plates here. Once you cut all the IFS out, you're able to put these in, and these are all keyed and slotted to hold your shock towers in. They got all the holes for all your steering box, track bar bracket, things like that. And our kit's running a Super Duty axle. I have a 99-04 Ford F250 or 350 up front with a matching axle in the rear. Obviously 1-ton 8-lug stuff. Allows us to run 40s and not break stuff.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna get a little close-up shot here, but so pretty much everything in here is redone fabrication. You said you kind of rip out all the stock sort of like mounting point setup and everything, and it's all renew fabricated mounting points, strengthening points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's start with the shocks. What shocks are you running? You know the specs on them?
So the front shock is a Radflow 2.5 coilover, 12-inch travel. This is a custom ordered shock with a short body to achieve the collapsed length of shock that we want, so that we can get the right amount of up travel and full bump numbers we're searching for.
So I'm assuming everything on here, like you said, it's R&D'd, all the stuff that's welded on, all the mounting points, it's all your shop, right?
Yeah.
Everything nice. I'm gonna look at these coil buckets a little bit here. So did you have to do anything with the wheel well? I mean, aside from just like hammering out the pinch welds and everything, as far as getting the shock tower to fit up inside of it?
Nope. So that's a big thing that we did, is we wanted you to not have to cut into your engine bay. The downside of that is you end up throwing a lot of dirt and water up in your engine bay, make a big mess. You gotta cut a bunch of shit out, and it doesn't really look too good. So our big focus with the kit was to keep everything inside here, keep your engine bay dry to where when you pop the hood, it's not a big mess to deal with. Right here, we did have to cut out the corner of the front core support to clear the tire. You see we didn't get it all the way, but close enough to keep us happy. And that's really all the modifications that we had to do to the underside.
Nice. And then I see the King bump in here. What's the specs on that?
Yes, that's a 2.0 by 2-inch travel pin top bump stop. I usually run Radflow stuff on everything I have, but I had those sitting around, and with the price of everything these days, I'd rather just use what I got instead of get some more, you know.
Well, that might be something else I want to touch on. It's like a big question I had on the way up here. So obviously, like, there's a big difference between, I mean, look in the background, you got snow mountains, so SoCal versus Nevada sort of off-roading and off-road culture. Is there a reason you like to run Radflow more than King, you know, which is like something everybody runs in SoCal?
Yeah, so there's a guy out in Gardnerville, his name's Phil Licardi, and he is the kind of Radflow dealer around here. And that guy's helped me with a lot, taught me a lot about suspension, helped me out tuning stuff, and he's really been the go-to guy to answer any questions I've ever had. He's a big-time Radflow dealer and stands behind them, and I've gotten to the point where I kind of follow that guy blindly, you know? He knows his stuff really well, and he's always willing to help, so if he says run Radflows, I'm running Radflows.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when you have somebody you can trust in the industry, for sure.
Absolutely.
You got limit straps back there, the PRP. What are you strapped at?
The front end strapped at about 11.5 inches of travel.
Nice.
Yeah, so just got a little bit from topping the shock out, and then the bump stop obviously takes care of it bottoming out.
And as you could see, we're kind of struggling to get the shots in the wheel well because of these massive tires. You want to go over the wheel and tires and the specs of them?
So we're running, I think it's a 17 by 9 Dirty Life Roadkill bead lock. I ordered these in a machine finish and had them powder coated in the gold just to change it up a little bit. And these are a 40 by 1350 17 Nitto Trail Grappler. My first set of Nittos I've had on a rock crawler. I've always wanted them, so took a little bit of searching, but we're able to secure these bad boys.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if it's like a cultural difference between SoCal and here, or if it's just something in your own life, but you want to talk about how you ended up with like Dirty Life wheels and why you went with these tires.
Yeah, I mean, really, I I like the Nittos. I like the way they look. They're a little bit heavier, so if we're going fast, I know they're not the best tire, but on a rock crawler, you know, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. And then, really, man, I just like the design of the Dirty Life wheels.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
They definitely look nice. And then is this a hub lock you have in the center, or?
Yeah, so I still got stock lock-in hubs on the front. I got 538 gears. I got an air locker up front, and I've got a Detroit True Track in the rear.
Nice.
I'm kind of waiting just to see what I break first. I'm assuming it'll be a hub. I've got like 2 spares in the truck just in case. But eventually what we'll do is we'll upgrade to chromoly shafts and a 35 spline outer shaft with a 35 spline hub.
All right, great. Is there any work in the engine bay you want to show us?
I can, yeah. It's all stock pretty much. I got a couple little things mounted in there. It's actually kind of clean looking in here.
We haven't started off-roading yet, that's why.
That stays clean, man. That's the best part. So I got a PSC reservoir right here. I added a pressurized cap to the top to where the system can pressurize a little bit. It kind of keeps the fluid from aerating, which when you're kind of rallying it and beating on it, the pump will start to make a bunch of noise. So this has helped a lot with that. What else we got? Swapped to a 1-ton master cylinder to keep up with the brakes that we got. It's running a 2nd gen Tundra booster with an adapter from Trail Toys, I think. Yeah, I think that's who makes it. You can't really see them, but we got our Martech poly motor mounts down there. Once you start putting the big tires on these things, the motors like to torque and the mechanical fan likes to run into the fan shroud and stuff. Yeah. So we put our mounts in there to keep the motor in check, and that's really about it. Put a little distribution block here, breaker for my ARB compressor in the cab, and obviously a distribution block for when I go to add more stuff in the future. We're already set to go. And these are sick. They come out of late 90s square body Chevys. These go to pick and pull and fill your pockets up and take them home and clean them and be on your way, you know?
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. A lot of guys like to run their shocks right here in the engine bay. Which I'm not a fan of at all, because you have to relocate your fuse box. Yeah. And that just sounds terrible.
I want to go back. So you said you have your company's motor mounts in there. Is that something to be used, not solely, but like mainly geared toward rock crawler stuff? Or do you think even like a truck like mine could be running those motor mounts?
For like a daily driver truck, I don't really think that you need them. Going from a rubber mount to a polyurethane mount, you do kind of create more of a rigid motor mount setup, which for off-road you really want, because you want to keep the motor in check. You don't want things moving and creating forces where they shouldn't be. Some guys like to complain that the poly motor mounts cause like vibration in the cab and things like that. Maybe a little bit, not really as much as people say it does. I think a lot of those people that say that the poly motor mounts do that don't have poly motor mounts and can't really speak from personal experience. They're more so speaking off what they read on the internet, which we know what's on the internet is always true. So I mean, I gotta give them their credit, but
especially that air freshener you got in there.
Exactly. Oh shit! Look at this. I just saw this.
Oh, not the headlight.
Damn, dude. Both of them. Damn. That's why I don't pop the hood on this thing, man. Nothing but bad news when you do that.
No. Well, better you found it now than missing a headlight halfway down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Is there anything you want to touch on kind of up front here? I mean, you got no bumper. You got the whole bumper delete. Is it because, I mean, obviously you need the clearance, but you didn't want to go with sort of like a fabricated design, or?
I actually just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
So with running the shop myself full time, I had to take a lot of time off to get this thing built, which is, you know, more of an investment than anything. But once I got it finished and mechanically done and driving, I was like, shit, I got a big old backlog of work I got to take care of. So we've got about a month until King of the Hammers. I'll be going down there, do some wheeling, you know, try and meet as many people as I can. So the goal is to have bumpers and sliders done before then, so we can go party down there.
So it's sort of going to be like a rolling advertisement at King of Hammers,
right?
That's
the goal, yeah, that's the goal. That's why it looks like a damn McDonald's truck, you know, try and catch people's attention with the gold wheels and the red paint. So far it's done pretty good, so yeah.
Nice. Well, you guys heard it here. If you want to see this thing in person, go to King of Hammers. All my people are SoCal anyway, so.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. So come on by, come say what's up.
All right, so we got the front kind of talked about, really. Is there anything else you see up here that you don't think you touched on? I mean, I'm just saying this is all foreign language to me, so I couldn't tell if you had missed something or not.
We built all the steering on this thing ourselves. We did our own kind of high steer kit welded to the cast knuckle. PSC Ram assist steering is killer and a must-have when you're running a big 40-inch tire like this. I think everything else really, man, is... I think we kind of went over, you know. Got my East Coast Gear Supply diff covers. Order all my parts from those guys. Yeah, I think that's about it.
As far as like temperatures on all the different fluids and everything, you run into any problems running tires this big and a heavy setup like this?
So I obviously can't monitor my diff temps. I don't think those are any issue, you know, because these are a 1-ton axle designed to be in a big old diesel heavy truck.
Yeah.
Putting to work all the time. I bought a little scan gauge so I can monitor my trans temp. It usually stays around like this time of year, like 150. It doesn't get too hot at all. The hottest I've gotten it up to is about 215 going up in the snow. That's kind of where I figured it would get hot too, running in high gear, having to push through a foot of snow. So I let it get to about 215, shut the truck off, let it cool. I think in summertime it'll start to get hot. So my goal there to combat that's going to be a tranny cooler somewhere under the truck. I'll probably leave the whole front setup intact with the tube cooler or whatever it's got going here. And just add an auxiliary cooler with a fan so that when I'm stopped or going up something steep, it's got a little bit of extra cooling and extra fluid capacity too.
Well, I was gonna say, you haven't had this built for summer yet, have you? You haven't ran it in summer.
Correct. So the first one I built, that guy's 2 years into running that thing, 2.5 years. He doesn't have any issues at all.
Okay.
Year round, he does a lot of recoveries around here, pulling people out that are stuck in their big old trucks and whatnot. He hasn't had any issues, but he's also not monitoring it, so I don't know exactly. You know, I think he's kind of on an ignorance is bliss kind of deal, which, hey,
it's nice to have sometimes.
I'm all about it. But, you know, knowing that I'm going to be helping people with this, I want to have all the answers for everyone, so it's important to me to monitor it and make sure that if it did have an issue in the future, we can offer people a solution.
It's interesting to see how this is going to handle in summer then if you haven't ran it through summer.
Yeah, I mean, it should be fine. I think the snow is, you know, people don't realize how much that kind of robs power and how much more effort it takes out of the vehicle to get to push through it. I mean, you know, if you're going to walk through a foot of snow, you're dying, you know, after a mile or so.
Well, all right, I think we got the front end buttoned up. Well, actually, the brakes. Did you talk about like the sort of brake setup you have in there?
Yeah, dude. I mean, they're all stock.
Oh, no
we
kidding.
We can go over them if you want.
Just the stock calipers, drilled and slotted rotors?
Stock calipers,
nice.
Yeah. Actually, I got these axles out of a junkyard, and these are the drilled and slotted rotors that were on it when I got it.
Oh, come on.
I just cleaned them up and stuck them right on there, dude. Because the way I look at it is, you know, like a big, heavy diesel truck's going to be, what, 8,000 pounds, maybe more?
Yeah.
Whereas this thing, all said and done, is probably closer to 5.
Yeah.
So this thing, with the 1-ton master cylinder, everything does really well. It'll lock the tires up if you step on the pedal hard enough. The only downside of the big brakes is they're heavy. But
yeah, I mean, stopping's better than not.
It'd be like that sometimes, huh? So yeah, man. So the rear is basically the same concept as the front. It's a 3-link with a pan hard bar. The reason we did a 3-link over a 4-link is I didn't want to have to mess with relocating the gas tank. I feel like that just opens up a whole new can of worms. You end up having to put the gas tank in the bed, so you lose your bed space, and I'm just really not about that.
Yeah, I feel that. It looks like you really gauged all the R&D and the products around not messing with the truck as much as possible, just staying within the wheel wells, which is really nice.
For sure, yeah. You know, and a lot of these guys are running like the Go Fast campers or a camper shell with a rooftop tent. And I think the last thing those guys want is to get their bed nice and dirty with having to cut it out to fit shocks and things like that. But I also didn't want to sacrifice any performance from it, you know? So what I was able to do is run an off-the-shelf 12-inch shock on the trailing arm, so the 12-inch shock's actually giving me 15 inches of wheel travel.
Nice.
Which for what I'm doing is plenty good.
So this is kind of where I don't feel as lost because it's a whole shock relocation setup like I have done to my truck now. But this looks, I hate to say it, but I think this looks a little beefier, a little more stable than what I got going on.
Yeah, so it's a leaf spring delete, obviously, right? And this is gonna be geared towards everybody. So the front kit obviously is for someone who's willing to cut their truck up and kind of, hey, like get to a point of no turning back, you know. Whereas the rear kit's going to be offered to everybody. So, you know, a lot of the guys that have like a long travel front setup that would like to be linked in the rear but don't want to have to back half their truck or chop up the bed or anything. Yeah. This is going to be geared towards them as well as to the rock crawler guys, you know. Yeah. The nice thing when you're going from a leaf spring to a coilover is you're able to adjust your spring rate a lot easier. Tuning the vehicle is just the shock. It's not the shock and trying to figure out your shackles and your leaf springs.
Like a combination of things.
Exactly.
That's the road I'm hitting right now. I'm trying to find the perfect combination.
It's tough. I hate dealing with leaf springs, man. Like it's Until you do it, you don't realize that links, in my opinion, are easier, dude. 'Cause it's just like I set it up. I don't have to do a whole lot of pulling it apart, putting it back together to cycle it and make sure it's good like you would with the leaf spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we got a TK1 sway bar back there. I called Tony down at TK1, told him what I was going to be doing with the truck, and he was able to spec me out a sway bar that he thought would work well, and so far it's killer. Ugh.
Oh yeah, you got no bumper in on 40s. It's so much easier. Oh, you got a very interesting exhaust routing system here.
Yeah, I gotta touch it up. This hanger's after falling off. I need to add another hanger over there to keep it from moving. But yeah, I had to move the exhaust to this side so that it would clear the upper link.
Is there a reason you decided to go with still routing it all the way to the back versus just dumping it near the muffler?
When going slow, I like to evacuate all the exhaust out the back of the car. That way you're not, you know, if you're out like wheeling on the trail, kind of hanging out, sitting there idling, the further I think you can get it away from the car, the better. Yeah, again, I mean, that's just the little cultural difference there. Not so much location, but now just like off-road style. For sure, yeah.
Trails, you're going slow or you're doing some crawling.
Yeah, whereas with like a pre-runner and shit, you're just, like, the only time I'm on the throttle is when I'm ripping, so it could come out the front fender, it don't matter. Definitely. Well, it's a whole clean setup right here with all the brake lines and everything. Thanks, man. Yeah, so I sourced a bunch of off-the-shelf brake lines that are pre-made. It's actually a lot cheaper than making them yourself and a lot cleaner. That way you can just buy a spare brake line and keep it with you in case you have any issues. Then obviously had to bend the hard line to go from this side of the axle over to the passenger side. And everything else is all just bolt-on. Converted everything to Dash 3 AN fittings. Got away from the metric 10 stuff. Yeah. That way, you know, you can keep a spare line or keep like a brake line kit with you, and if you go out and have any line fail, as long as you got a couple Dash 3 brake line parts, you should be able to get back together. Something I just can't get my eye off of now is most people call it a pumpkin, but this thing isn't a pumpkin. This thing's like, it's a boulder now. Yeah, man, it's big. It's big, and that's the big reason why we're on such a big tire, is to keep that ground clearance as best we can. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, you're increasing the size of that, but also the tires, so I wonder what the difference is between, say, like a mid-travel setup with like 33s and a stock one versus this. For sure, yeah. You look like, I mean, do you scrape it? Have you checked under if it's rusting? I still haven't really wheeled it yet, because my problem is I know once I take it out in the rocks, I'm going to want to like spend a lot of time out there messing around, so I'm just keeping myself away from the rocks until I get all the bumpers and sliders done so I don't destroy this thing. Really like all these perches that you have here, like the design of it's just really unique. It looks lightweight with, like, you know, not having metal where it doesn't need to be. For sure. As far as we know right now. I mean, who knows, you're still, I would say, I don't know if you would, but would you say you're still like sort of in the R&D phase of like testing now? Yeah. I think until we really kind of like put like a solid year on it, I'm gonna always be checking things and making sure everything's good. Yeah. With that being said, I think I've had the truck done for about 6 weeks, and I don't think I've even bolt checked it since. I drained and filled the rear diff after breaking the gear set in, and that's about it. I might even need to go back and tighten this. Oh, it's not falling off. We're good. Well, the last thing I see back here is, again, you got the bumps and those nice strike pads, actually. I really like those. Yeah, thanks, man. And then are they the same bump specs as the ones up front? Yeah, they're the exact same ones. All right, perfect. And then, again, you're trying to get the work on the rear bumper, have it in time for King of Hammers. What do you do about license plates out here? What are the laws with license plates out here? I think they want them, but that's just a gray area for me. It's vague. If you see a cop, just kind of hang back. Yeah, I mean, maybe... Are cops cool with like modified vehicles out here and like the culture, car culture? Yeah, they're not too bad about it. You know, I've been here 20 years now, and I've been seeing off-road rigs rolling around since we moved up here. Interesting. And, yeah, half the cops got their own rock crawlers and off-road toys, so they understand it, you know. All right, so let's get back to the truck. You got the full-size, is this a full-size spare? No, it's only a 35, so... I only bought 4 wheels and tires at the time, scraping to get this thing built. That was all I could really afford at the time. The price for that's got to be crazy. The goal is obviously going to be for a full-size spare, but I designed the suspension setup with needing a spare tire in the bed with the way I sprung the rear end and things like that, just for kind of more weight to help balance out the vehicle. And it helps a lot with tuning of the vehicle and stuff like that. So I was borrowing a 40 from a buddy on a wheel. He needed it back and traded me out for a 35, and I figured a 35 is better. Oh no, it's a 37, my bad. Okay. I figured a 37 is better than a sharp stick in the eye. Something I want to look at now, because with my shock relocation tower, they have obviously the 360 weld on the frame, but then you go into the top right here in this little cubby, they got 2
bolts going through the whole the top end from like flexing and whatnot.
Oh, cool.
So you're welded 360 down here on the frame, obviously.
Yep.
And then, do you have any sort of support up top?
I don't. So that's one of the things we're monitoring. I mean, obviously in an ideal world, you'd have everything tied together.
Yeah.
But that kind of defeats what we're trying to do with the bed being fully isolated from everything. So it's something I'll be watching, something I'll be kind of keeping an eye on to see if it does fatigue and fail or if it's strong enough like this. So far, everything looks really good. I haven't really had anything come loose or move. So I think just the more we torture test it, the more we're going to watch it and see what it'll do. You know, that's been the driving factor of why I've been kind of rallying it and putting it through its paces through that kind of stuff, because I'm like, well, shit, if it'll take a bunch of jumping and whoops and stuff like that, you know, should be fine in the rocks.
Yeah. Well, the box design already, just by looking at it, looks a lot beefier. Like, it comes out further. It looks more sturdy just because it's got more material going into it versus the one I'm running. But I really like how you also blew it out a little wider and have the angle to fit a piggyback versus a hosed reservoir.
For sure, yeah. And that was something that I figured if I built it to fit a piggyback resi, it'll fit an external reservoir shock no problem. You know, you can just make it to where your hose comes off and then you can put your...
Yeah, you can route it wherever.
Put your reservoir wherever you choose.
Yeah. Well, I guess also if you're going to be running this full kit, you know, with the bump and the stabilizers and everything, you don't really have a lot of room for an external too. But if you're just running like I'm doing, where it's just the shock relocation, then you do have the room. So
for sure,
it's like you said, it's a really diverse sort of setup. The whole thing is a whole diverse setup, just front, back, and
I mean, it's got a great amount of up travel. So when the guys that are on like a 35 with a long travel kit or 37s don't want to, you know, obviously have a huge truck, there is enough wiggle room in there to lower the truck and get the achieved ride height you're looking for.
I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I was digging when I first saw the truck, is like the same concept of a shock relocation without going through the bed, but with a different spin on it, you know, because that's not like, I think it's still in its early stages of being introduced to the market, you know, shock relocation, because everybody's going through the bed back in the day, but now we have a clean option. So I think it's cool to see different spins put on it as it's starting its journey in the off-road industry.
Absolutely, man. And I think that was the biggest driving factor of this kit, like I said, was to have a versatile suspension that's not one-dimensional. You know, I don't like the idea of having something that's like, well, hey, I got, you know, 16-inch coilovers in the back and 20-something inch to travel, but I can't put a sleeping bag in the bed if I have to because the truck bed's filthy. And that to me was pretty important, you know, because I've built a lot of things like we chatted about earlier that were built for one thing and one thing only, and you find yourself not using them as much as you want, and the next thing you know, you're like, I think I'm just going to get rid of this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Something like this, I can drive every day. I can bring the dogs in the bed. I can bring the dogs in the back seat wherever I choose. I can drive it on road trips. I can take it up in the snow, rocks, desert, comfortably doing everything.
All right, well, I think we touched on all the suspension, front and rear, bumpers, wheels, tires. I don't think there's anything else external that we really need to... Is there anything interior that you have done? You said you have one scanning gauge.
Sick air freshener. Yeah.
Okay. I think I was gonna put that picture earlier when I mentioned it. Just a quick little flash.
Yeah, man. I mean, the inside's pretty much stock. I got a switch for my air compressor, my front locker here. I'll probably end up putting a couple accessory lights in here, but I'm not really too keen on doing like a Switch Pros or a S-Pod or anything. I want to just keep the interior as basic as possible.
Yeah.
Same thing, just kind of add to that relaxed driving experience, you know. I don't like a whole lot of stuff going on in your face while you're driving. I got the scan gauge down there. That thing was like $100, so I figured $100 to read transmission temp. I think I got it set up to read engine temp, transmission temperature, volts, and I think I put RPM in there just because I had to have a fourth little readout. But yeah, that's it, man. Everything else is stock. We've still got the stock transfer case electronic switch on the dash. A lot of guys like to run the FJ case to go to a mechanical shifter, but I figured if we don't need to, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I figured if I blow up this transfer case, I've got a couple spares to hold me over, but I'll do an Atlas eventually.
I think that might be something that we didn't touch on in the beginning, but like, what years is like year? Obviously Toyota Tacoma, and then like what? Do you know the trim?
I think it's just an SR5.
Oh, nice.
I don't know, but yeah, it's a 08 Tacoma SR5 stock, 4-liter automatic stock transfer case. 250,000 miles, and it just still runs strong, man.
I mean, that came to mind just because the whole thing is like very clean. Like, I rode in it on the way here, and it's just a clean, simple. Like, it still looks pretty mint for. I mean, in 08 now. I mean, we're getting up there in years. We're at 23.
Yeah.
We're at 2023 soon.
Yeah. So I got this off a guy that had owned it for a long time, and it was bone stock when I got it. Being a Toyota, the mileage doesn't bother me, you know. My biggest thing on this was the second gens are notorious for having rusty frames. So all I did when I went to look at this thing, I mean, I obviously drove it, made sure the AC worked and all that kind of stuff, and then just crawled under it and made sure it didn't have any leaks and didn't have any rust on the frame, and everything checked out really well. So it was a perfect candidate to chop up and build. Plus, with this many miles and stuff, you feel a little less guilty cutting it out.
For sure. All right, well, again, yeah, that's everything front to back. I think we're just going to try to rig it up with some GoPros now. He's going to show us his local trails going out. We're going to, I mean, that's another thing about this build. Like I was telling you on the way here, at first glance, I think it's a rock crawler. Then there's videos of you sliding that corner. Like, what were you doing, like 65 or something?
I'd say I was like around 50 there, maybe, something like that.
But still, like power sliding a truck this big with tires this big, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's surprising, man. The motor really surprised me. I didn't think it would have quite the juice it has, but it's done me well,
Yeah, well, you're power sliding corners, you're hitting whoops, you're crawling, so this is really an interesting build that we're going to hopefully try to capture on GoPro right now, and we'll see you guys on the trail. sorry for the road noise, but we're back at the shop now. He's hosing that thing off because we got it completely filthy, covered in mud. But I think it was a fantastic day. It is a crazy rad truck. I'm so stoked I got to see it. I'm so stoked I got to ride in it. And I can't wait to see that King of Hammers. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today's video, and I will catch you in the next one.